Okay, in this video I will take you through the first pages of Beloved to get you started on reading the novel. You'll see that this novel, in all the publications I've seen of it, has this image of an angel child, a very primitive mark. You see these sometimes in 19th century cemeteries, where you don't have necessarily the funds or ability to contract some kind of artist, but you do want to memorialize a child or someone else and say that there's an angel watching over you. But the facial expression on this angel is, of course, rather serious, and has these, uneven eyes and this rough structure, which is kind of echoed in the actual ghost that haunts the house. 60 million and more is a reference to the slave trade and the legacy of enslavement in North America, in particular the U.S. I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her my beloved, which was not beloved. This is from the Epistles of St. Paul to the Romans, the book of the Bible. And these kind of contrasts between things that are mine and not mine, things that are loved and not loved, and this idea of claiming something that is not yours, which is present in both, when you talk about enslavement and also when you talk about hauntings and ghosts. So this is Toni Morrison writing about her experience writing the novel. We can go back and read it. So here's this engraving of, again, another funerary monument. And the beginning of it is 124 was spiteful. This is the address of the house, and they know the address by its number. 124 was spiteful, full of a baby's venom. The women in the house knew it, and so did the children. Just to stop with that, even, you have a house can feel spite, a house with the presence of a baby is not a loving, happy, giggling house. So, already we are being placed into a world of fiction where you want to know more, where you want to know why and how. The women in the house knew it, and so did the children. For years, each put up with the spite in his own way. But by 1873, so we know when, we know where, and we know something about a what. It's a haunted house. Sethi and her daughter Denver were its only victims. The grandmother, Baby Suggs, was dead, and the sons, Howard and Bugler, had run away by the time they were 13 years old. As soon as merely looking in a mirror shattered it, that was the signal for Bugler. As soon as 2 tiny handprints appeared in the cake, that was it for Howard. Neither boy waited to see more. Another kettleful of chickpeas smoking in a heap on the floor. Soda crackers crumbled and strewn in a line next to the door sill. Let's just pause there for a second as well. We've got a lot of information communicated to us very efficiently. So we now know the people in this house were Setha and her daughter Denver. They're the ones who stayed in the house with their grandmother, Baby Suggs. Setha's sons, Howard and Bugler, by the time they were 13, so really just about after they hit puberty, they're old enough to probably get a job working somewhere. They leave in order to make their own way in the world. This idea of impermanence as something that happens when you're in this kind of hand-to-mouth economy. Bugler living with his mom and the ghost of his dead sister in the house. He can't anymore. He looks in a mirror and it shatters. It's terrifying. And then, Howard, clearly there's some kind of celebration. They're having a cake. Howard sees these 2 tiny handprints appear. They didn't want to wait to see more. And we get these impressions of what had happened before. And these are things a toddler does, a baby does, right? A child breaks things. You might break a mirror, which is the sort of, symbol for superstition. A child tries to reach and grab a cake with its little hands to get that sensory experience. There's chickpeas smoking in a heap on the floor. So, playing around in the kitchen when they're not supposed to, eating messily with these soda crackers all in a line next to the doorsill. So it's a great way to show how something that might be really loving, beloved, and endearing is also kind of terrifying. So nor did the boys wait for one of the relief periods, the weeks, months even, when nothing was disturbed. No, each one fled at once the moment the house committed was for him, what was for him the one insult not to be borne or witnessed a second time. Within 2 months, in the dead of winter, leaving their grandmother, baby Suggs, Setha, their mother, and their little sister Denver, all by themselves. So we're bringing back the cast of characters here, right? So that we can keep going in a different direction all by themselves, but she's also giving new information here in the gray and white house on Bluestone Road. So now we have the address. It didn't have a number then, because Cincinnati, we now know a location, didn't stretch that far. In fact, Ohio had been calling itself a state only 70 years, when first one brother, and then the next, stuffed quilt packing into his hat, maybe to look a bit taller, snatched up his shoes, and maybe a bit warmer too, and crept away from the lively spite the house felt for them. So, to recap this bit, if you know the geography of Ohio, Cincinnati is right across the river from Kentucky. And so if you were escaping enslavement, then that would be the kind of place where you would try to escape to head north. And so yeah. And Ohio had barely been a state for all that long. Baby Suggs, this is the grandma, didn't even raise her head. From her sickbed she heard them go, but that wasn't the reason she lay still. It was a wonder to her that her grandsons had taken so long to realize that every house wasn't like the one on Bluestone Road. Suspended between the nastiness of life and the meanness of the dead, she couldn't get interested in leaving life or living it, let alone the fright of 2 creeping off boys. Her past had been like her present, intolerable. And since she knew death was anything but forgetfulness, she used the little energy left her for pondering color. So we're getting this character development here too. We learn these people we're going to get to know better in this novel. Baby Suggs. First of all, the fact that she is an elderly grandma and she still goes by baby is kind of great. And you can kind of look at it and see what some of the relevance is of that in the novel, especially since it's a novel haunted by a baby. And the way she understands all of life is something that's encapsulated in this paragraph. Like, yes, she loves her grandsons, but, there is trauma behind, and this idea that the afterlife is not one of oblivion and perfection for her, but, that it's not not always something to be excited about. And so, when we don't have much, we think of beauty, and in her case, beauty comes in the form of color. This is before we have a lot of commercial availability of some products. You know, you might have paints and drawings, things, or fabric, but you're not going to have like a giant framed colored photograph to hang on the wall, and you wouldn't have a painting unless you had a fair amount of money, which they don't, as we learn. Especially if you're just eating chickpeas and crackers. These are not luxurious foods. And Sethe would oblige her. So bring a little lavender in if you got any. Pink if you don't. Guess pink is easier to get than lavender. And Sethe would oblige her with anything from fabric to her own tongue. So you got a pink tongue. Winter in Ohio was especially rough if you had an appetite for color. Sky provided the only drama, and counting on a Cincinnati horizon for life's principal joy, so things like beautiful sunrises and sunsets, was reckless indeed. So Sethe and the girl Denver did what they could and what the house permitted for her. Together, they waged a perfunctory battle against the outrageous behavior of that place, against turned over slop jars, smacks on the behind, and gusts of sour air. So this baby pulling pranks on them, but angry pranks. For they understood the source of the outrage, as well as they knew the source of light. Baby Suggs died shortly after the brothers left, with no interest whatsoever in their leave-taking or hers. And right afterward, Sethe and Denver decided to end the persecution by calling forth the ghost that tried them so. So we're getting into some action here. Often it's action that's emotional and not necessarily, you know, someone running around with a sword. Perhaps a conversation, they thought, an exchange of views or something would help. You know, we've got this ghost, 2 children have left, you know, you got 1 left. So they held hands and said, come on, you may as well just come on. The sideboard took a step forward, but nothing else did, so moving furniture. Grandma Baby must be stopping it, said Denver, because she's passed away. Denver was 10 and still mad at Baby Suggs for dying. Sethe opened her eyes. I doubt that, she said. Then why don't it come? You forgetting how little it is, said her mother. She wasn't even 2 years old when she died, see, a toddler. Too little to understand. Too little to talk much, even. Maybe she don't want to understand, said Denver. Maybe. But if she'd only come, I could make it clear to her. Sethe released her daughter's hand, and together they pushed the sideboard back against the wall. Outside, a driver whipped his horse into the gallop local people felt necessary when they passed 124. For a baby, she throws a powerful spell, said Denver. No more powerful than the way I loved her, Sethe answered. And there it was again, the welcoming cool of unchiseled headstones, the one she selected to lean against on tiptoe, her knees wide open as any grave. This is where she has to basically exchange sexual favors for her child's tombstone. Pink as a fingernail it was, and sprinkled with glittering chips, so it's granite. 10 minutes, he said. You got 10 minutes, I'll do it for free. 10 minutes for 7 letters. Beloved. With another 10, could she have gotten dearly too? She had not thought to ask him, and it bothered her still that it might have been possible, that for 20 minutes, a half hour, say, she could have had the whole thing. Every word she heard the preacher say at the funeral, and all there was to say surely engraved on her baby's headstone. Dearly beloved. But what she got settled for was the one word that mattered. And so this beginning section, only the first couple of pages, have established that we have this young baby whose presence is haunting the mother who lost her and whose presence doesn't understand why she is gone, and the sister who stays in part because of the mother and in part because of her other sister. And so what we have here is a need for peace and a need for reconciliation that the novel gives us the chance to see.